Hey guys, this is Jonathan from Fitness for Freedom. We're an in-home personal training company. That means we specialize in giving people workouts they can do in their house. Today we're going to talk about the quadruped. Why do I like the quadruped? Because it's a great exercise to strengthen your quadratus lumborum and your internal and external obliques, which are kind of two neglected areas in a lot of people, and they're really hard to actually train. And they're really the main muscles that stabilize your spine. So if you're looking to build some core strength or some core stability, this exercise should actually be part of any program that you do. And what's really great about it is that there's a variation for your level, no matter what level you're at. And I'm just going to take you through those variations today. So let's start. So every good quadruped starts in a good position. So that's with your shoulders directly over your hands, with your knees directly beneath your hips. Your shoulder blades are a little bit down and back. You're sort of pushing through the floor from underneath your armpits. And you have a good 90-degree bend through your knees, 90-degree bend through your hips. And we have a neutral spine. So I mean just a slight arch through your spine the whole time. Okay, so the very first variation of this exercise is one that we'd probably do if you're a rehab client or you have a lot of low back pain and you're just trying to ease into abdominal workouts again. And that is just with a straight arm, shoulder blade squeezed down and back. Okay, so you're just lifting your hand about an inch, maybe 2 inches off the floor, and that's it, keeping everything as stable as possible. So now most people will find that too easy. So then what I would recommend is going up to the next variation, which is the neutral arm lift. So that's where you squeeze your shoulder blade down and back, and you actually do a little row in this position. Okay, I prefer that to this motion, which you can do this motion. There's nothing wrong with it. I just find that a lot of clients tend to shrug and lean forward when they reach forward with their arm. So you really have to practice tracking your shoulder blade and actually lifting up from underneath your armpit and using your shoulder blade properly, which I would recommend before we get into some of the harder variations. But for most clients, we're trying to just develop the movement pattern, which is a shoulder blade squeeze down and back. Okay. So the dumbbells serve two purposes. If we're doing this exercise or this variation and we want to row, it gives us a little bit added resistance to work without actually lifting our legs, because once we start lifting our legs, it becomes a lot more challenging to keep our hips nice and stable. You can also hold dumbbells in any other variation, probably except for the forward lift variation, to keep your wrist neutral. So if you're someone that suffers from wrist pain when you're doing an exercise, neutral wrist just means a wrist like this instead of with your arm or wrist extended like this, which a lot of people, especially if you're older or you have arthritis, you'll have a problem with that. Okay, so the next step, if we're tracking and we can lift up okay like this, would be the leg lift now. So this is where it starts to get quite a bit more challenging. You want to keep your hips nice and stable and just push your leg straight back. And then lower it again. Okay, you can alternate sides. What I'll do is, normally I like to have a client do all the same side in a row, just so they get a little bit more fatigued on that one side, but then I'll find what they do is they start bringing their knees closer together, or they really start twisting. They start twisting a lot and getting out of control. And if I make them put their knee down in between each repetition and go to the other side, make them go to the other side, then it forces them to reset themselves in between each repetition, because the hardest part is actually that initial lift off the floor. Okay, so the next variation, a lot of people, or some people would call this the bird dog variation. I know that I see there's a lot of other YouTube videos on here. Very few people actually do it properly. Some girls get on in their sports bras and their little skimpy perky outfits, and they get like 3-4 million hits on a video when they're not even doing the exercise properly. And that's this, where you go with your arms straight out and your legs straight back, keeping your pelvis as stable as possible. If you're pushing your belly down and lifting your leg up, that's not a great variation. Sometimes they'll do this kick back with their leg straight, and that's the worst. I can't even hardly do it, where they let their back totally arch out. That's no good. Puts a lot of extra pressure on your lower back. So really try to stay as stable as possible, so we're not twisting around or turning down, or I don't know. I see all kinds of things with this exercise that just don't work well for me. Okay, And then the last variation, this isn't actually the hardest variation, it's probably like maybe second or third hardest, but a lot of people have trouble doing it properly. And this is the fire hydrant or the dirty dog variation, where you just lift your leg straight out to the side, only maybe 2 inches off the floor maximum. As soon as you get higher than that, then you'll start twisting your hips up, which is where the name comes from. Okay, so we're nice and stable. Good. So the last variation, which I don't even know why people even talk about it, but I'll touch on it anyway. It's when you do arm and leg on the same side. It's part of the FMS, and it's a ridiculous test just because I've never seen anybody successfully do it. So why would you put an assessment tool or an exercise in a test that you know everyone's going to fail anyway? And that is the alternate, the arm and the leg lift, where they go straight out to the side and hold it. And I was leaning like crazy there, like not even close to doing it properly. But if you can do that video properly or that exercise properly, I would love for you to send a link to it in the comment section below, because I'd like to see what you've got. If you ever have any questions as well, or would like to give us feedback or comments, just leave it in the comment box below, because I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. That's Jonathan from Fitness for Freedom. Thanks for watching, and take care.